So in this video, we're going to talk about God methods. God methods. I assume for this video that you know a little bit about programming. It doesn't matter what language. So you know what a method is. A method is just a function. And a God method is a god-awful long method. I was about to swear there. I stopped myself. I got to practice not cursing. Anyhow, so a God method is a giant method with 10,000 ifs in it. Well, maybe not 10,000, maybe 4 or 5. Or maybe you got nested ifs. You got an if statement, and then inside the if statement, of course, an if statement, the fancy nerd way of calling an if is to call it a conditional statement. And so we're going to use the nerd terms now because we're nerds. So when you have a God method is just a god-awful long method. And inside there, you got so much code, it's so confusing, it's a nightmare. Now, an example of that is you may have conditionals, conditionals, and inside your conditionals, you may have three other conditionals. So it becomes this big tree of all kinds of branches of conditionals. And it's just a nightmare to figure out what's going on in there. And that's called a God method, and it's just a monster. And if you start writing code and you're writing a method or you're writing a function, you see it's really complex where you got multiple nested ifs, and or it's just really big, like I don't know, 100 lines or 200 lines or something, or whatever like that. It's time to do some immediate refactoring, and there's a video on my channel on refactoring, what it is. And basically, it's extracting code out of this huge method, this huge function. Function is a method is a function, right? And you extract the code out of your method, and you create another function, another method, and you have the first method call the second method. You can watch the video on refactoring. So that's a God method. A God method, it's not a good thing. You shouldn't have it. So why am I talking about this? Because I'm going to give you one of my stories. So about 5-6 years ago, I decided that I wanted to experiment with a type of app, but I was too lazy to do any of the coding myself. So I got one of my guys, one of my assistants, who was intermediate level coder at the time. And I said, okay, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to have you do the back end. And it was just a prototype. So if you know me, you know I love quick and dirty prototypes. The POC, the proof of concept app, where I don't really care about rock solid code. I just want the app out and in the hands of people as soon as possible so I can see whether or not it works, right? So I got this guy who was a junior, and I was exceptionally lazy at that point in time, and it cost me. And so they started designing it, and they would ask me questions. How should I do the database? Should I do like this? And I say, yeah, what is it? Whatever. I was just flippant because I was working on other things, and so they built the app, and it was working. Where I spent my time was working on the UX and UI, because these days, when it comes to app development, whether it be mobile apps for iOS or Android, whether it be a web app, any type of app really, the key to success in the apps these days are really in the UX and UI. How usable it is, how it looks, how it feels, how things are positioned. The technical challenges of the past are no longer. You see, back in the 90s, a lot of the challenges as a developer were truly technical challenges. How can we do this, right? We didn't have the infrastructure. We did not have the frameworks that we have today. Like a classic and silly example I make is like the date picker. With HTML5, you just go input type date, and then you got your date picker, no problem. Well, in the 90s, there was no such thing. So, I remember a friend of mine, he spent like 2-3 weeks creating a date picker for an HTML form. It sounds nuts today, but that's the way it was, right? So we used to always have these technical challenges. Today it's not there. The technical challenge, if any, is just in designing good architecture so that your apps are easy to update and then designing good architecture so that you can scale quickly if you need to. Now, that may not apply if you're developing an app for an iPhone or something, for the most part, but nonetheless. So these days, the problem, the challenge with apps is having a good content or a good structure and good UX. So I didn't pay attention. All that to say is that I didn't pay attention to the back end too much. I said, yeah, that's right, whatever. Let's just get it out, see what happens. So we got it out, boom, boom, and over time, it slowly became more and more successful, this app. We've had to do a lot of changes to it, of course, to accommodate what the market was telling us. So how does this all relate back to God methods? Well, we have a problem now, this many years later. One of the key methods, one of the key classes in this app today has this huge god-awful God method. Huge. And it's been a bane of ours for the last 2-3 years because nobody wants to touch it because we're very scared to break anything. And so we've been basically working around it. We've been working around it by using, I've talked about this in other videos, we use like microservices to avoid things. So you got this big, it's like having a giant zit, right? And you don't want to touch it because you don't know what will happen. So we've sort of been working around this thing. And it's just like, it's all my fault because as a manager, I should have at least went in there and said, before we, weekly, just go do a little quick code review, say, whoa, that's a God method there. You got to clean that up now. Problem is, we're 5 years, 6 years later, and that God method is like legacy stuff, so not good. So yeah, if you find in your code you got a God method forming, put the brakes on, do some refactoring, and break it down, and you'll thank yourself for spending that extra time doing that. Trust me, you'll thank yourself for doing that. So no God methods, please. Don't have multiple nested conditional statements, otherwise known as if statements. And well, I'll stop right there. But that's pretty much it. Simplicity, underlying theme of all my videos, whether it be your business, your diet, your life, your code, your relationships. Try to keep it simple. Ciao. Now, if you write a book, one of the things you're supposed to do is promote it. So I've been negligent on that. I have pictures of my book on my website, and I mention it once in a while. That was a book I wrote in last year, 2015. But strangely enough, the sales are actually increasing as far as I can tell. So it's done pretty decently. I'm not complaining. So I'm going to shamelessly pump my book. If you're a beginner to web design, you want the big picture, you want to learn HTML5, CSS3, a bit of JavaScript, a bit of Bootstrap, just a tiny bit of jQuery, and you want to learn how it all fits together, and you want it written up in an easy, non-nerd language and have pretty pictures and charts and all kinds of stuff like that, pick up my book. You can get it on Amazon, you can get it at Barnes & Noble, you can get it in bookstores in North America and in Europe. And it's getting very good reviews, getting very, very good reviews. So if you like the vlog you just watched, because I'm just going to stick this on the vlog, at the back end of the vlog, then you're probably going to like my book.